congratulations on your new appointment. So to begin with, can you just give us a little bit of your background, please?
Well, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to talk to you. I was born in Niue, but I came here to USP, and I graduated initially from the Fiji School of Medicine, and Fiji is like second home to me. And then I went overseas, mainly to New Zealand, mainly in medical and public health roles. And then I spent a short time with the World Health Organization in Geneva, Switzerland. I returned to New Zealand, where I was chief executive of a government department before I joined SBC December 2012.
Mm-hmm. And then can you describe your role with SBC prior to your appointment as the new Director General?
Oh, I was head of public health, really trying to rebuild the team to work on different health issues like helping the countries respond to diabetes and heart disease, monitor or surveillance of outbreaks like dengue fever around the islands, different things like that.
So is your expertise mainly on health sector, sir?
I obviously I'm a doctor, and that's what I know best. But my role at the Ministry of Pacific Island Affairs, I was essentially a leader and a manager that had nothing to do with medical or health. That's general management, leadership, and obviously I started off as a health person, but now I have general management leadership experience. So clearly this role at SBC is not a health role. It's a part of it, but it's a broader leadership and management role.
Mm-hmm. There are many issues in the Pacific, and amongst those issues, one is sustainable development. Now you are the new Director General of SPC. How would you define sustainable development for the region?
I mean, it's obviously a big topic, but put simply, it's about what is it that SPC should do to support countries reach their development expectations. So if you take Samoa, they have very clear about what their development expectations are. They already know what their economic priorities are and social development issues, and the role for SPC is to help to do that. When we say development, it's not. It's about how do you use your resources, but in a sustainable way. So you're looking to develop, you're looking to create wealth for the country, but you're also looking to protect the environment. So take deep sea mining, clearly potentially a game changer for the region, but also potentially the great damager of our environment. And it's that fine balance between creating wealth with and for the countries, but also making sure that we do it safely, if we do it at all. I mean, those are the issues.
Mm-hmm. One of the other issues faced by the region is the issue of climate change. How will your focus be in this area of climate change?
Well, SBC is involved in a number of areas in relation to assisting countries on climate change and disaster risk reduction, mainly around technical, scientific issues and information from the countries. But I think it's also important to note that actually we're not the only organization. SPREP, the Regional Environmental Program, has the lead for the region on this work. Ours is pretty much around the work that SOPAC does in relation to climate change and risk reduction.
Mm-hmm. We have spoken about sustainable development, we have spoken about climate change. What are some of the major priorities for the region? What do you see? What are your views on that?
Well, I think on the economic development side, it's again about sustainable development. What are the areas? What are the sectors that have economic development potential? Tourism, mining, maybe fisheries. Obviously, how do we get more value out of the fish that the Pacific Islands have? So that's on the economic, and there are other areas. But on the social side, it's about education. There's been several interventions in this space, but I was a little disturbed to learn the other day that actually a lot of the kids who are at school are not actually achieving the kinds of expectations. So previously we used to be worried about kids not being in school. Fortunately, they are in school now, but they're not really achieving literacy and numeracy skills that we would like. So that's clearly a big issue. and health, my primary area, diabetes and heart disease. I mean, it's potentially one of the big issues for us. You can't talk about development, you can't talk about employment, for example, if you don't have healthy people. So there's a number of areas.
So how do you aim to address all these issues? You've mentioned mining and other issues, education. How do you aim to achieve your ambition?
Well, clearly SPC has a clear mandate. It's around providing the evidence, generating the scientific evidence, and providing the information to the countries. It's actually up to the countries what they do with it. So our role is getting the information, sharing the information, helping countries make the right decisions, but at the end of the day it's the decision of countries. They're sovereign, independent states. So our role is very clear. And say if we went back to fisheries, for example, the team monitor the tuna stock and they provide the information to the countries. What they do with that information is the responsibility of the countries. So our role is very clear: creating, generating, sharing the right information, not personal opinions or issues like that, but more about solid evidence.
So now, since you are the new head of SPC, will there be any change or shift in focus for the organization?
Well, I think that the CRGA meeting last week has issued the expectations of our governing body, and I need to look at that and obviously deliver on those expectations. But naturally, as a new person, I would want to have a look at things and see what I might do differently.
What were some of those expectations, sir?
From CRJ last week, I mean, a big one is around the review of the governance. As you can see, this is a big body and it's quite costly to bring together. Meets once a year. Always pressure on time, not enough time to discuss the big issues. Can we do better? That's one issue. The big one is on sustainable financing, I guess is the jargon. But put simply, SPC relies a lot on projects that start and stop. So we get 2 years funding from a development partner to do something. After 2 years, the money stops. It's very hard to plan. It's very hard to look long term. So we have to try and change that from project to more sustainable, longer term financing so that we can plan with some certainty. They're just examples of what we need to do.
DG, I believe a budget of $100 million has been approved. So how will SPC go about providing assistance to its members and channel this fund to according to these specific needs?
That budget of SPC is an internal budget. It's allocated to the divisions. So the division of fisheries and marine resources will get a share of that money, pays the technical scientific staff to provide the advice to the countries, as well as perhaps provide training workshops in the countries. So it's not, we don't allocate the monies directly as some organizations do. We're not a funder. That money is really what we need to pay the people to do the work, if you like, plus train the people in the islands on different things. So you hear us a lot talk about capacity building. We want to be able to enable Kiribati or Solomons or Vanuatu to have the skills and to do as much of these things themselves, and for us to gradually do something else, if you like. So it's not an allocation to the countries. It's what SBC uses to deliver the services.
And what are some of the reforms that slash changes that you would like to bring about within the organization, if any?
Well, I think I was fortunate to be part of the independent external review last year, which is being implemented now, and I think that's an excellent blueprint for the way ahead. So I'm not a fan of change for change's sake. But clearly, if we can do something better or cheaper or someone else can do it, then we would look at that. I just think it's a little early to specify what they will be.
In terms of getting a new membership, can you elaborate more on this please?
There are a number of organizations and countries that are major supporters of SPC, but they're not members. I think you heard Dr. Rogers refer to something like half of the budget we have now come from institutions that are not members of SBC. For example, the European Union will be, if they're not already the largest fund of SBC, they're not a member. So the question that was discussed last week and this week is, what do we do about that? We don't have a decision. That's a decision for the conference and for CRJ, but obviously as a secretariat we need to look at that issue and provide some options.
Can you tell us what were some of the recommendations that were passed in during this week-long meeting, please?
You'd have to look at the communique. If I remember correctly, I think the extension of the territorial scope. By that I mean we're now increasing the area so that it includes Timor-Leste. So if Timor-Leste wishes to apply, they can meet this. I think the budget for 2014 was passed. I think the divisional plans, including the one for public health, the strategic plans, were endorsed. The funding regime, the sustainable funding regime was endorsed. Anyway, there were a number of those.
What sort of plans do you have in place in terms of working more closely with the SPC's members?
Well, you would have heard the reference to what are called joint country strategies, JCS. One was signed today with Kiribati. That's essentially an instrument that says during the next year, 2-3 years, this is what we will do. Because as you can imagine, we have 7 divisions, and I'm in public health. I don't necessarily know what the fisheries guys are doing. We talk obviously, but it's just not possible to know everything, and that's why I think the JCS is a good instrument, because in there it identifies very clearly the fisheries project, the land resources, health, etc. In terms of what SBC does, but also in terms of what the country might want to do.
And what are some of the lessons that you have learned from your predecessor, Dr. Jimmy Rogers?
I think it's clearly he's been an inspirational leader for the organization. He's a very humble individual. I tend to be very direct. Jimmy relates well to people. I think he's a very ethical person in terms of what we should do and how we should do things in terms of relating to countries and people. Lots of different lessons.
And how long is your term, sir?
Initially 2 years, but that's something I'm talking to the organization about.
Anything else you want to say from your side, sir?
No, just thank you for the opportunity, and I hope you'll come and ask me questions regularly. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to meet you, sir.
Yeah.
Congrats on your appointment.
Okay. Thank you.